Why is it that we return again and again to situations that hurt us? Toxic relationships, self-sabotaging habits, emotional patterns that leave us empty and drained. You may think it's bad luck or poor choices, but Carl Jung would say otherwise. He believed that these repeating patterns are not random. They are a message from the depths of your psyche, calling you to face something you've long avoided. In this video, we'll explore why you may unconsciously seek out pain, and why breaking free from this cycle is harder than it seems. Jung called it the compulsion to repeat, a hidden force that pulls us back into suffering over and over again. You see, the psyche is not always rational. Parts of your unconscious may be invested in keeping you in familiar pain because it feels safer than the unknown. And often this cycle begins in childhood, when unresolved wounds become the blueprint for your adult life. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your unconscious may be addicted to pain, how your shadow feeds and sustains these cycles, and how you can begin the process of integration and healing. So if you've ever wondered, why do I keep ending up here again? Stay with me. Jung's insights may reveal more than you expect. Carl Jung's friend and sometimes rival, Sigmund Freud, first coined the term repetition compulsion. He observed that people often unconsciously repeat painful experiences, even when they consciously wish to avoid them. Jung expanded this idea, deepening our understanding of why the psyche holds on to suffering. At its core, repetition compulsion is an unconscious drive to recreate early emotional wounds. Why? Because the psyche is attempting to resolve what was never fully processed. Think of it this way. If a child experiences abandonment, humiliation, or rejection, that wound leaves an imprint in the unconscious. And unless consciously healed, the psyche will seek out similar situations in adulthood, not to punish you, but to give you another chance to face what was once unbearable. But here's the paradox. Without awareness, these repetitions do not lead to healing. They simply reinforce the wound. You may find yourself drawn to partners who treat you badly, or sabotaging opportunities that could bring you joy, or reliving the same patterns of guilt, shame, or self-criticism. Jung believed that this compulsion was not just psychological, it was archetypal, a deep mythic pattern that operates beneath your conscious mind. Breaking free requires more than willpower. It demands that you bring the unconscious to light and confront the very parts of yourself that are addicted to suffering. In the next part, we'll explore how the shadow feeds this addiction and why facing it is the key to transformation. Carl Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, the hidden part of the psyche where we bury aspects of ourselves that we fear, reject, or cannot accept. But the shadow does not stay silent. When ignored, it begins to express itself indirectly through self-sabotage, compulsions, and the repeated attraction to pain. Why does this happen? Because pain often resonates with what lives in the shadow. If you carry buried guilt, shame, unworthiness, the psyche may unconsciously seek out experiences that confirm these feelings. It's not that you consciously want to suffer, it's that part of you, the shadow, believes you deserve to. In this way, the cycle of repetition becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Pain validates the hidden beliefs you've absorbed about yourself. Worse yet, the more you deny these shadow aspects, the more power they gain. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Many people unknowingly live under the rule of their shadow, drawn to relationships, careers, and habits that echo unresolved wounds. Why? Because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar joy. The known, even if toxic, is less frightening than stepping into the unknown self. To break the addiction, the shadow must be brought into awareness, not rejected, but integrated. In the next part, we'll trace where this cycle begins. The original childhood wounds that shape your entire pattern of suffering. To understand why we become addicted to pain, we must look back, often to the earliest years of life. Jung believed that childhood is when the basic architecture of the psyche is formed. During this time, the child is highly sensitive, absorbing not just overt experiences, but subtle emotional undercurrents as well. When a child experiences abandonment, neglect, harsh criticism, or emotional inconsistency, the mind must make sense of it. But a young psyche lacks the tools to process complex pain, so it forms beliefs. I am unlovable. I am not enough. Love always comes with pain. These beliefs become embedded in the unconscious, and they seek validation throughout life. Why? Because the psyche craves coherence. It is more comfortable to confirm an old belief than to challenge it. Thus, we are drawn to situations that match these early imprints, even when they hurt us. A child who felt emotionally abandoned may repeatedly choose distant partners. One who was constantly criticized may sabotage success, believing they do not deserve happiness. Jung observed that these childhood wounds act like magnets for repetition. We recreate the familiar pain in adulthood because it is the only story we know. But this is not destiny. Once we become aware of the original wound, we can begin to rewrite the story. In the next part, we'll explore how pain can even become part of your identity, making it even harder to let go. One of the most insidious aspects of pain addiction is this. Over time, suffering can become part of your identity. Jung warned that the psyche clings to what is familiar, even when it causes harm. If your early experiences taught you that life is painful, or that love equals suffering, these beliefs can become woven into how you see yourself, and identity is powerful. If you believe, unconsciously, I am a victim, or I am broken, the mind will seek to maintain consistency with that self-image. Why? Because losing an identity, even a painful one, feels terrifying. The ego fears emptiness more than suffering. Jung observed that the persona, the mask we wear to face the world, is often built upon hidden wounds. We may even take pride in our pain stories. No one understands how much I've suffered. I always survive the worst. And while resilience is valuable, clinging to a pain-based identity can trap you in endless cycles of self-sabotage. You might unconsciously resist healing, because letting go of pain would mean letting go of who you believe you are. This is why true transformation often feels like death, the death of the old identity. And why so many people fear the freedom they claim to seek. In the next part, we'll explore another layer of this pattern: family loyalties and inherited pain, wounds that may not even be yours. Sometimes the pain you carry isn't even your own. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious helps us understand why. Beyond personal experience, We inherit emotional patterns from our families and from the deeper layers of the human psyche. Families are not just systems of biology, they are systems of loyalty, and often we unconsciously carry forward unresolved pain from our ancestors. This is called invisible loyalty. You may repeat the suffering of a parent or grandparent as a way of staying connected, of belonging to your lineage. If my mother never felt worthy of love, how can I? If my father struggled with failure, who am I to succeed? The unconscious adopts these burdens as a kind of sacred task, but without awareness it becomes a curse. Jung also noted that ancestral trauma can live on in the collective unconscious, a psychic inheritance that influences us beyond personal memory. This explains why certain emotional patterns seem to run through generations. It is not simply genetics, it is the unfinished emotional business of the family soul. And unless you consciously confront this inherited pain, you risk living a life that is not truly your own. The cycle will continue, passed down like an unwanted legacy, until someone finally faces it. In the next part, we'll explore why breaking free from these patterns is so difficult, and why the psyche often resists healing. By now you might be wondering, if these patterns cause so much suffering, why don't we just stop? Jung would say, because the psyche is not governed by logic alone. It is driven by deep forces, fear, habit, loyalty, and the instinct for self-preservation. First, there is the comfort of the familiar. Even toxic patterns feel safer than stepping into the unknown. Pain that is known is often preferred to joy that feels alien. Second, there is psychological homeostasis. The mind and body seek to maintain equilibrium, even if that equilibrium is rooted in dysfunction. Sudden shifts, even toward healing, can feel destabilizing. Third, the ego fears the death of identity. As we saw earlier, suffering can become who you are. Letting go of pain threatens the fragile construct of self you've built. The ego will resist, often through subtle sabotage. Finally, there is the shadow's grip. The parts of you that feed on pain do not want to be exposed. Bringing unconscious material into the light requires courage and often help. Jung believed that transformation demands a confrontation with the deepest layers of the psyche, and this process, called individuation, is not for the faint of heart, but the reward is freedom. In the next part, we'll explore how to begin this process through the path of shadow integration. Carl Jung believed that true healing begins when we face what we have long avoided. This is the essence of shadow integration. The shadow contains not only your hidden wounds, but also the lost potential of your psyche. By bringing it into consciousness, you reclaim parts of yourself that were exiled long ago. But how do you do this? First, through awareness. Begin to observe your repeating patterns, the relationships, situations, and emotions that trap you in cycles of pain. Ask, what belief or wound might this pattern be expressing? Second, through radical honesty. You must be willing to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. This is not about blame, it is about understanding. Third, through compassionate inquiry. Meet your shadow with curiosity, not judgment. Remember, the patterns that once protected you are no longer serving you, but they began as adaptations to pain. Fourth, through inner dialogue. Jung encouraged active imagination. a process where you engage with shadow aspects as living parts of your psyche. This helps integrate them, rather than allowing them to operate unconsciously. And finally, through patience. Shadow work is not a quick fix. It is an ongoing process. Each layer you bring to light deepens your freedom. As Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In the final part, we'll reflect on the journey and what it truly means to break free from the addiction to pain. Why do we become addicted to pain? Because parts of us, hidden in the unconscious, seek to repeat what was never healed. Childhood wounds, inherited family patterns, the grip of the shadow, the comfort of the familiar. Carl Jung taught us that these forces do not disappear simply because we wish them away. They lose power only when we turn and face them. This is the path of individuation, the journey of making the unconscious conscious. It is not easy. It asks for courage, humility, and deep self-compassion, but the rewards are profound. When you integrate your shadow, you reclaim your lost vitality. When you release inherited pain, you step into a life that is truly your own. When you shed the false identity built on suffering, you discover the freedom to be whole. So I leave you with this. The next time you notice an old painful pattern arising, pause. Ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? And remember, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But fate can be transformed, and so can you. If this video resonated with you, consider subscribing for more explorations of Jungian psychology and the journey of the soul. And share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your story. Until next time, keep going inward.